I'm here in Rhode Island where I spend every American Thanksgiving, and I am always given the job of decorating the table, which is a job I love because it sort of encourages me to go and play. And today I'm going to show you how I draw my inspiration from nature. I think when you're out in the country, when you're in a rural setting, it's wonderful to go outside and find things to bring in for the table rather than going to a store and buying flowers or potted plants. And every year I try to do a different arrangement. This year, because it's been raining, it's wet, it's moist, the moss in the woods has just come to life. It's the most beautiful, vibrant green color. And I'm very inspired to create a table setting, a centerpiece for the table that is basically just moss. So what I do is I come into the woods and I'm really borrowing from the woods. I'm going to take the moss from a specific spot. We're going to use it on the table for one day, and then I'm going to bring it back here and put it back to where it was. So look at this. I feel like this is, to me, this is nature's carpet. And nature has many different carpets in my mind. One of the carpets I love the most, which is kind of the Persian rug of carpets in nature, the silk knotted rug, is when I go into the ocean in the summertime and there are no rocks on the ocean floor and I put my feet down and it feels like a silk rug. And I always say, it's like a Persian rug. If someone's asking, what is it like? Is it rocky? I say, no, it's like a Persian rug. And this is, to me, like a woolen rug, like nature's woolen rug. I don't know where this comes from, my fascination with moss, but it is something that it speaks to my insides. It draws me. I just have to go and touch it. And in this forest, there are all kinds of different moss. There's this moss that's kind of leafy, but then look at this moss over here. This moss here is different. And in the forest, there are like cushions of this moss, sometimes like a pillow. So I'm going to gather different moss today, but what I'm going to do from this tree trunk is just pull up a sheet. And as I said, I'm going to bring this back here. I'm going to bring this back here when we're done with it and put it back onto the trunk. So I brought a basket with me. It's just incredible, like how the forest kind of works. It's an ecosystem, and to see it at different times of the year, because I come in here at all different times of the year, it's wonderful to see it in its different stages. Okay, I think that's good for that type of moss. I'm going to, there's some tufts over here. Look at this. It's like, the color of this is like this beautiful emerald green. And this is like, look at that. It's like a cushion. So, just borrow you, bring you back. I'm trying to stick to one area so I can remember exactly where everything goes. And tomorrow is Thanksgiving, so I'm going to use this, and then it'll be on the table for tomorrow, and I'll bring it back the following day. There. And I'll gather, I think, just one more tuft of moss. And then I'll head back and show you how I actually arrange these. Exciting. Okay. I have my moss. And I have these pedestals, which we've had quite a few of. She has a bunch of things in the basement, and it's fun to just go down there, rummage, and find whatever's available to use for playtime. So there were a bunch of these. I picked a few in different sizes, and what I need to do is just put something in these pedestals that's going to act as a base for the moss. Like something that is going to give off a little bit of moisture. It doesn't have to be for very long, just a day, but it's going to keep the moss fresh and alive. I'm using sponges. These are pottery sponges that I have in the barn, and they're actually perfect because you can wet them. They will hold their moisture and allow the moss to stay kind of fresh. And then when you're done, you can just rinse the sponges out and they're back to normal. So I'm using all different shapes and sizes of sponges, just sort of squeezed into these pedestals. Here are some tiny pottery sponges to put into the smaller spaces. I like using what I have instead of going out and acquiring things if possible. These little sponges, they don't need to be, they don't need to be squished in perfectly. The moss will kind of hold them in place. So I'm starting with my cushion moss, the sort of pin cushion moss. It feels like a pin cushion. And what I do is I place it over the sponge and kind of squish it and tuck it into the edges of the pedestal. I want to make this look like it's growing out of the container, or that it was grown in the container. So the key thing that I'm looking out for are the edges. Now, note to self, when you come back from the woods, don't leave your microphone in your pocket because it will render the audio useless. It'll be all scratchy and scrunchy, which is why I'm doing a voiceover right now, because I can't use the audio from the video. So that's what's happening here. I'm just going to explain what I did. My mouth might be moving in the video, but it would be very scratchy and horrible for you to listen to. So in these little areas, I'm just using bits of moss, or when I was in the woods, I also found lichen. This is a little piece of lichen with a twig in it, and it's perfect for just squishing into these smaller cracks and crevices. I'm really paying attention to the edges. Like instead of having it overhang, I'm tucking it all in. It's a wonderful medium to work with because it is very sculptural. And I really wanted to create the feeling of a mound, like a pillow as it appears in the woods. And this moss, this sort of pincushion moss, is perfect for that feeling. Look at how beautiful that is. Now this is the sheet moss, and this stuff is so lovely to use because you just drape it over the form, and then you can cut or tear the sides to fit your shape. Again, tucking in the ends, I think, is what makes this look like it's finished or naturally growing out of the container, the important part of this. And then it's the variety of mosses, I think, that makes this stunning. So I'm doing 3 of these containers of moss, but I think this would look stunning on the central table or on one long table of a wedding, like a really long table. You could have many of these arranged along the table with all different types of mosses. This moss, the sheet moss, has less features than the pincushion moss, but what I like to do with this moss is use it as a kind of canvas or a palette that I insert things onto afterwards. In the woods, stuff is growing out of this moss, but I was conscious of pulling moss that was completely bare with the intention of creating a kind of arrangement on it afterwards, stuff sort of coming out of it to make it look like it appears in the woods, really. So what I did was I went into the garden and I cut a bunch of things that don't need to have water coming up the stem in order for them to be fresh. Stuff that's dried, like these black-eyed Susans, all that remains of Susan are her black eyes. And then other things that had dried, and I was really looking for form and color. I wanted really dark things that created just a silhouette. Branches with dried blossoms on them. I have a blueberry stem here. This is a blueberry bush. I loved the color of the leaves. They were kind of purpley, turning into green. And then other little bits. And I just plucked a bunch of things and to play with, to test them out in the moss. This was a piece of bark that had fallen to the ground, and on the bark was this vine that had kind of attached itself to the bark. It is so beautiful. I will definitely be using that. I also found like a little wasp's nest that could also be used. So something like this, like look at how lovely that looks. Just placed across the moss. You kind of don't even know what it is. It just adds variety and depth to it. And then something that's upright. This is the blueberry branch. This type of thing is so easy. It's so easy to do, but it's so effective. And look, it's all just varieties of green. So that one's done. Next, the pincushion moss. I mean, this doesn't need much. Looking at this and turning it around, and this is another thing, turn the whole thing around, because if this is on a table, people are going to be sitting all around it. So you want to look at it from all sides, see if it needs anything. I'm testing out just a couple things, maybe some black-eyed Susan. Don't cut yourself. Nope. Doesn't need it. It's very nice as is. And the last one, this definitely needs something, because now it just looks like a green cake. So I'm trying out a blueberry, no, this is boxwood stem, but I didn't like how that looked. It looked like it was just a little thing stuck in there that didn't belong there. This is better. And this process is completely forgiving. I mean, you put something in, you don't like it, just take it out and try something else. My main goal was for it to really feel genuine. For it to really feel like it was just a piece of the forest floor brought onto the kitchen table. And there was something about these very sparse, dried branches that felt right. Not stuck all over, but just here and there. And also not in the middle. So the location of these branches, the placement of them is very important. All done. These are the 3 arrangements of moss. I think they look great. Look at those beautiful greens together. So the last thing I did was just sprinkle some water on them. And I have a spray bottle in the house that I will use to keep them fresh over the next couple days. But that's all I need. So the table is green. These orchid pots I made in the barn a couple years ago. And these orchids are in bloom. I just think they're so beautiful. The green leaves tie in with the moss. A little tip, if you're setting your table for the holidays, set it like the day before. because the fine wrinkles and creases that are in it will kind of fall out, especially if you spray it lightly with a mister. So the final thing that goes on this table are these beeswax candles that I found in Seattle that are green. They're 100% beeswax, but they're green. And I think that looks great. The table set for Thanksgiving. My job is done.